Just reminded I'm on mute. Thank you so much. Really appreciate everyone's time today. Depending on where you are, either good morning or good afternoon. My name is Kevin Flanagan. I am the head of product marketing for Transcarent. I'm so excited to join you today for this incredibly important topic of AI literacy, upskilling HR teams, and the workforce with AI skills. Just before we get started, I want to make sure to encourage everyone to submit any questions or any comments in the chat. We want to make this as conversational as possible. I know for me, if we just even get started here, I'm in Sacramento. The sun is coming up shortly. It's been a hot week or so, so hopefully we're heading into the fall soon, and this will be the last day. But maybe we can take a minute for anybody who's attended. Just drop where you're from in the chat. Let's see where everyone's from. Wonderful. All right. Well, really excited to have a robust discussion today. We have an incredible panel for an incredibly important topic. As we all know, AI continues to innovate almost on a daily basis. It seems like you can't go a couple of hours without seeing a brand new article, either in the Times, the Journal, or anywhere else on a new development moving forward, not only for my industry and healthcare, but really across the board. So it's an incredibly timely opportunity to be talking about upskilling, AI skills, and what HR teams can do to really push that forward. So really excited to have this discussion, and maybe at this time I'll go ahead and I'll bring our panel in so that we can have a full round of introductions, really kick it off. So why don't we start with you, Alicia, if you wouldn't mind. Go ahead and give yourself the intro.
Hello. I'm here based in Madrid, UK. I'm HR transformation lead at Strada and eager to learn and participate in that amazing conversation.
Sounds good. Thank you. How about you, Megan?
Hi, everyone. Happy Monday. I am dialing in from New York City, but I just got back late last night on a flight from Helsinki. So I feel like I'm still in the European time zones. Also really excited for this conversation. There's so much potential for AI within HR and really can't wait to learn from my fellow panelists.
Thank you so much. How about you, Kara?
Hi, everyone. Same thing. Happy Monday. My name is Kara Vega. I am a Chief Human Resource Officer on a global scale. I work for Global People Transformation, helping organizations through their transformation, including AI. So I'm very excited to talk to all of you and have a great panel today.
Awesome. It's so exciting to have you here, Kara. How about you, Renzi?
Hello, everyone. My name is Renzi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. I'm dialing in from Dubai. So I'm really excited about this panel because in the beginning of the year, I started embarking on my learning journey on upskilling myself on anything AI, because in the world of HR, I feel like we're quite slow in adapting it, but at the same time, not many are moving fast enough to really embrace AI. So I am really deeply passionate about this topic.
That's a great point. Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Alex.
Kia ora, it's Tuesday here in New Zealand, so really early in the morning, so good morning. I work in an HR consultancy, which I own, but part of the consultancy has an AI arm. So we're looking at all things AI through business as well as through HR. So I'm really excited to learn. I've started training in it myself. So this is the type of panel that I'm really excited to be a part of, with regards to making sure that we're covering all our bases, and particularly in the HR profession, because we certainly can lead from the front.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I think, as you mentioned, now is really the time where we have that opportunity to dig in. We're a few months from the new year here, and I'm sure if this past couple of years has taught us anything about just how quickly trends in AI can continue to accelerate and require not only quick shifts, but in some cases overnight shifts. It's a perfect time for a topic like this. And Alex, if you don't mind, I might actually start with you with some of the opening questions here, specifically with your background in people operations and transformation. I'm curious, what are some of the most important AI skills you believe HR teams need to develop to stay ahead in this AI-driven future?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that we've been discovering is the complete lack of structure and framework around the use of AI in workforces. And not that I'm a great prescriber that HR should be the person that is holding the frameworks or compliance even in that matter. But we know how to do it well. So I think that part of the start is to make sure that we are at the table, if not leading the charge, with regards to the ethical use of AI in the workplace. I think that you could certainly have a completely unproductive workforce if AI is just let out for everybody. But then there's also the parts of actually making sure that the L&D components of using technology in that way is really well locked down. And what I mean by lockdown is that there are sort of hints and tips that unless you are told, you don't know. So entering your company private data into an open AI is not a great idea. Those types of things that people don't tell you. So you could certainly, it's not like Google. And that's where people are getting the two confused. So I think from our experience, making sure that we are at the table as a profession to help and guide all the way from the board down about where are the use cases, and just doing a few collaborative trial and error, I suppose, working groups. That's how we've found the best way from an introductory perspective. I'd be interested to see what other people have been doing.
Can I add something to that one? Thank you so much, Alex. I think the other key skill that I'm seeing more and more, because as HR professionals, we tend to only look at the obvious, but I think more and more we need to see people who are really experts in AI for HR. Because what I found working with different organizations is that there's no one, or there's not that many people who are well versed in AI tool selection for HR. And as a result, it becomes a huge shopping bag for everyone in HR, like buying, oh, I want this. This is cool. This is cool. So the name of the game is basically what is cool out there, without really looking into what's most important for the organization. And then to your point, Alex, about like designing that strategy on what would that future look like for us? Because there is, whether we like it or not, there is a direct impact. Whatever you do now with your AI strategy can have a significant impact in your HR resources, i.e. your people. And then the not so obvious one, which I believe is super important, which is non-AI, is still around change management. So going back to my point about like people are just blindly shopping AI tools and platforms out there, what they don't understand is this requires like a thoughtful change management in the organization, because you are essentially changing the behavior of the people within the organization. And as a result, this can also have a massive impact, not only just on the ways of working, but also in the overall culture of the organization.
Sure. I'd like to comment also. I think that taking some of the Renzi points, that just to facilitate the audience, just to start figuring out how to face and how to manage that, I think that we have to distinguish between facilitating the people to be literate and trained on understanding AI, how applied AI works in the day-to-day activities, and then and on the other hand, to understand how AI, no generative AI, which is a very hype now around that, AI will impact the future of the workforce. Okay, so no matter if it's HR or any other function, in one case you can, let's say, set a more homemade or short-term a program or activities to help people discover and facilitate to deploy some creativity and initiative skills. But when talking about how the future will look like, companies need, apart from a continuous change management approach and a strong strategic workforce planning exercise to know what future are you facing with this training and how that your organization needs to be prepared with AI, with data, and with a lot of technologies that is currently and will impact on the future of the industries and the activities. Yeah.
It's a great point. I heard a lot about change management, arguably being, if not the most, one of the most important factors here. And Kara, curious with your expertise in global HR transformation, what do you see as kind of the most significant barriers to HR, to AI adoption in HR, and kind of how can organizations best overcome them to be able to really thrive in this new era?
Yeah, definitely. Change management is a extremely important part in all of this, regardless of how your organization decides to approach AI. And I think some of the biggest barriers from an HR perspective is lack of technical knowledge. So making sure that your people have the technology expertise behind them. So making sure that they're either upskilled or that you have someone joining the team that can then mentor. That's a really important part. I think there's also the fear of, well, what does this mean for my job? And how is that going to be going forward? Keeping in mind that AI is really here to enhance people's jobs. Yes, jobs may change. So, being able to battle that fear within not only HR, but really the organization as a whole. But I think that's an important piece as well, because I think when you're talking about the barrier to have a successful implementation from an AI perspective, you need to think about it in small steps, right? Doing one project at a time. It's very difficult to, implement lots and lots of different changes within the organization. In any HR, tech stack, you would not do everything at once. So it's the same thing with AI, being able to have, small pieces. And I think the way that you are able to overcome that is you really have to think about it from an overall cultural shift, not necessarily that you're having a AI stream training that is happening in and itself. Not that you can't do that. It will still be helpful, but the most successful I've seen is to be able to do it from an overall cultural shift and adding AI into your already, training philosophy. And I've seen that that's the most successful to the barriers. I think the last thing I'd like to say is just, it starts with leadership. You really, really have to have leadership on board. Otherwise, with any initiative, it's quite difficult to move the needle if you do not have that buy-in. So I think that's also the ability to have strong HR leadership in place that can, be able to get the rest of leadership on board and that you're all marching in the same direction. I think those are the most important pieces.
I just want to build upon what Kara said. I think when AI for HR first became a drumbeat like 2 years ago, it was this blanket statement around AI for HR. And what got lost is what are the specific use cases that we as HR professionals, like where can we play and test out, different tools to solve the problems that we're working on. And so really kind of going from that overarching AI for HR and getting clear on, within your organization, your team, like what are some opportunities to then find different tools to test and pilot and iterate with. And so just kind of making it a little more practical and being clear on why are we embarking on this journey? Like, what's the reason? The change management. What's the value? But also getting at the fear that Kara mentioned. I think, again, going back a couple years ago when ChatGPT first rolled, or I guess blew onto the scene like a hurricane. There's so much fear around like, oh my gosh, AI is going to take my job. And I think where we are today is yes, and like somebody who knows how to leverage these tools will take your job. I I just got, I think like a week ago, I got some automated message from an organization saying, we've got this open job, this open software engineer job. Megan, your skills look like a good fit. And I just started laughing, like, wow, there's absolutely nothing in my background that indicates I am a good fit for this software engineer job. And so I share that as an example of where an organization is over indexing on, we'll just use AI to message people that their profile aligns with this job, not realizing now like the human reaction is, oh, what does that mean if they think I'm a good fit for, like, are they just spamming people? And so, again, I think there's that balance of having the human oversight of how are we setting things up? How are we reaching out to people? How are we structuring our data to ensure that we're finding the right people? So we don't have HR professionals getting job blasts for software engineering roles.
If I can add also to Kara and Megan, I think one of the things that I see also as one of the biggest barriers is around assessing not only just the readiness, but also like which areas in the business will create the maximum impact when it comes to really introducing AI. I think to my point also earlier, because people are going shopping on the best tools and whatnot without really understanding which ones, because we're not the likes of the multi-billion-dollar organizations there where they have deep pockets and then like they can buy whatever they want. But most organizations can easily misuse their funds, their investments for the year on technology if they don't do a proper assessment, if they don't see the readiness of like the team, the department, the division, the business unit, or the country. Because you could be offering them the most sophisticated AI platform, but if people are not ready yet when it comes to, I think one of them said about the mindset, but also the skill set. If people are not ready, then you're gonna face a massive problem. So it's just going to be a waste of your investment. But also imagine like how like some of your employees might turn into disgruntled employees because you wasted so much money, and then you cannot give them bonus because you spent all your investments in like hopefully buying the best AI technology. So I think the key there is around also assessing not only just the readiness, but also where will it create the most impact in the business if you don't have unlimited funds.
Absolutely. In fact, I think that I think that 70% of the worldwide workforce are blue workers, blue collar workers. So when thinking about AI, first think on the topic mentioned by Renzi, where in your business will be, what's the function that will be more impacted. But I think that this type of change, no matter the change management strategy that you put in place, not only change that function and activities, all change the entire operating models in the company. So when approaching your HR strategy to face the future with AI, I think that's very critical. First, to understand how, or try to forecast how the future of your industry and your activities will look like, and then have some continuous mechanism to assess this readiness. Is a continuous readiness. In fact, you have to assess how your workforce skills looks like today will be different from 1 year later. So you need technology to map your skills gap and to adapt your training strategies to the to those topics or activities that your business needs in the short, in the medium, and in the long term. I think it's not only on learning and development; it's a matter of operating model, or at least an HR operating model, which is heavily impacted by this technology.
So I heard a little bit in there around kind of the evolving business needs and how do you kind of structure those AI training problems. Renzi, I might ask with your expertise to maybe layer in, specifically on continuous AI skill development. We might be somewhat on the newer lens of being able to kind of upskill and train specifically from an AI environment, but knowing that this is only going to continue to grow. AI continues to change at a breakneck speed. How can HR leaders kind of foster that culture of continuous skill development while overcoming any initial resistance that may be there around AI learning?
I have one example now to share because I worked with a client most recently, and it's all about like rolling out, assessing, and then like understanding where the gaps are when it comes to skills. So one of the things that we have identified was actually to create different levels of AI proficiency. And we have invited all the leaders and everyone in the organization, especially starting with people in the support functions, because after all, it was a technology company, to make sure that they are involved in, or at least they have the foundational knowledge about AI, so that if their team members are asking for it, they are also aware of what it is and how to guide their team members. But also creating basically a program in different levels in the organization to make sure that everyone is covered in the organization, whether your role is technical or even more so with people who are non-technical roles like HR, IT, admin, and legal. What I've seen also is that, especially in this recent project, you can easily overlook the support functions because you think, oh, they don't actually bring money into the business. But if your support function is not fast enough also in adopting AI, they won't be able to create that efficiency. I think it was Carol was talking about efficiency, effectiveness, also increased productivity if you also don't look after them. So as leaders, I think you need to see your organization as a whole, like not only focus on your tech team, but looking at maybe a phased approach, multi-layer, to make sure that you cover everyone in the organization.
I really like that comment about the AI proficiency levels. And I think that is something that would be interesting for more companies to explore, to really get clear on when we talk about AI proficiency or literacy, like what does that even mean? And then what are the expectations? So thank you so much for sharing that idea.
And I think one of the other things is to think about, everyone is speaking about AI, and that's what we're here to speak about today, right? But if you think about HR and the HR tech stack to begin with, it's not really any different in that you have to have people that are going to be able to use the technology in the way that it's meant to be used, or it's not successful. And that's, throughout the organization. Every time you implement a new technology, whatever that capacity is, you have to have people that can actually use the technology in the capacity that it's used for. And I think, in my many years within HR, I've always had a real passion for technology and brought technology into those organizations. But at the end of the day, if you don't have good process and good, overall skill set to begin with, it's not going to help. You can have, the most efficient technology there is, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to utilize that to its, full capacity, or at least do it in stages to get there. And I think it's not any different, with AI. And so I think, going back to that fear, not only about jobs, but just fear of AI in general, a lot of the conversations that I have are around that. We don't have to think of it as this really foreign thing that's, something that we have to do completely different than really thinking about your overall strategy and what that looks like and how we're going to get there, and being able to break it down into manageable steps for everyone to, digest and to make it successful for everyone.
Yeah, I think, Cara, that's a really good point. I think one of the things that I have been I suppose over sort of the last 2 to 3 years being involved in HR technology first, so, your basic HRIS, and that's sort of 3 to 5 years, and then now moving that into AI, is this presumption that people know how to use technology. And, and I think if we go back to that assessment, sort of organizational assessment readiness type of concepts, that has become more and more important. And I think that as technology's been better, just even things like, how does a Microsoft suite hang together? How does that differentiate between that and Google when you're attaching AI onto the side of ... in your already operating tech stack within the business? And then how is it that feeding into your HRIS or other types of technology, ATS or any other technology you're using within specifically the HR side of the business? That's been quite illuminating, actually, insofar as the judgment call of people in that maybe generically talking about people under the age of 35, this great assumption that they grew up with computers. Yes, but we're not quite sure about what exactly that they were taught or learned around operating a computer in the workplace. So I might be able to use my laptop, but I don't know all the functionality that goes along with the operating system. Then you tack on AI, actually making sure that there is some investment, a stop. Lunch and learns doesn't have to be anything too onerous or expensive, but making sure that there is this focus on continuous improvement and inclusivity with regards to how the technology is utilized. And I think that a bit of the myth busting around older people not being able to access the technology in the same way, I found, I'm guilty as charged insofar as thinking, that people maybe of my age group and above were not going to be that savvy, if we want to use that word, with regard, and they're actually upskilling themselves far quicker because they never had it in the first place. And so then you're looking at other generational age groups who are not sitting down to learn how these things can be a benefit, and having bite-sized chunk learning, which in AI can be quite dangerous. Hence my comment around the rabbit hole. Dangerous in a fun way, of course. You could be there for hours like doom scrolling. However, in a productivity sense in a business, it's not really that great an idea to have your employees running around investigating absolutely everything in AI. So having those boundaries is really important.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to participate in a very big training program. You know that humanity becomes crazy at 20 years. 20 years ago, we became crazy with digital transformation. 10 years ago with data. Now we are becoming crazy with generative AI. Well, in the second wave of craziness, data, my company decided to let us all the company become aware and literate on data, and run an amazing program for all the people around the world to be trained in data. And I say, oh my God, I'm going to become a data scientist in a few months. Well, what happened is that 3 weeks after the beginning of the program, anyone could follow, because the topic, it was extremely specialized. That data is also mathematics, programming, and statistics, and so on. And I learned some useful things on data visualization and so on, but I didn't incorporate those skills into my daily activity. Then this was completely unuseful for the entire company. And the people that take advantage of the program was the technical roles recently joined the company, mathematics and programmers, and the people that was really prepared to be aware on the fundamentals on data. So something very important is what Alex has mentioned. Think on what does your business need, and before becoming crazy and define programs and want to train people on AI, on AI applicability and so on, answer the why, answer the what, and answer the how, because all of that, it's money. I mean, it's money, it's time, it's a big impact on productivity, on time, and more important than that, on confusing the people. Be clear about what you're going to do. And why do you want to train your people on what? Because people can say, maybe I'm being trained because my job is going to be eaten by a robot or something similar. So change management is important, but clarity on the future and the reasons why you do that is more important.
I
Can
really
I just
like
ask?
the comment. Oh.
Sorry, go ahead, Megan.
I like the comment that Alex made about how in your organization, you don't want all of your employees doing their own research on all the different tools. And so where can you, as HR practitioners, have that point of view and bring that to your employees? And just building on that, I think earlier this year, Microsoft's Future of Work white paper highlighted more and more employees are bringing their own AI tools to work. And so that just really highlights this gap of, if in your organization you aren't talking about it or working on a strategy or starting to experiment with tools, the reality is your employees are already doing it.
I just want to add something to what Alex and Megan said about like developing people. I think we know technology is very expensive. Like, let alone like if you don't have a huge learning and development department, bringing in an external consultant to deploy a training program can also be really, really costly. Like Alex said something about like lunch and learn. This is also, I think, an opportunity for organization to use internal expertise. Like, you have your lunch and learn, you have reverse mentoring, all types of informal learning where you're leveraging on existing expertise in the organization. I think will somehow dampen the impact of investing heavily on like development initiatives. Like the other thing that I saw like worked really, really well is some organizations that I've worked with, they actually have worked with their existing tech partners. So like, for example, Microsoft, they have Copilot and they do all these Copilot training for free. So instead of your team members developing something, like you can just partner with the likes of Microsoft or any other technology that you're already using, and then see what training programs do they already have where perhaps the technology is already offering AI. If they don't, maybe it's also worth asking the question like to these providers around what does their AI roadmap look like for the year, because you might want to include that in your plan for the coming year if they're going to be rolling it out this year, next year. So that's part of your development program, at least for the coming year, if you know where your existing tech stack actually are when it comes to AI deployment.
That was an incredibly helpful discussion. I think one of the components that really underscored there, which is really the topic of today's discussion, is really around literacy, and knowing that when it comes to AI, everyone is at different points in their own professional journey. You have issues that were well cited around whether or not you have a specific AI training program or a strategy. Your employees are going to be bringing those solutions and doing their own work. So it's almost kind of trying to meet a number of different audiences all at the same time. I can speak specifically at Transcarent. One of the reasons why we really built around this idea of making sure that we are meeting everyone where they are, knowing that for our own solution in healthcare, you have individuals who are coming to you. They know they're experiencing pain. They're not quite sure exactly where to go next, and how do you make the AI approachable in a manner to where you can say, my shoulder hurts, and it's able to guide you appropriately, versus assuming that everyone has a PhD in healthcare benefits or can self-diagnose themselves. So specifically on that lens, I'm really curious to get your thought on how do you design AI training programs that can help kind of meet each individual within the company at their respective comfort level for AI literacy, while still making sure that you're achieving the objective at the end of the year, whether it's training on a new solution, training on a new tech stack. How do you kind of balance that need between the different levels of AI literacy that may exist within your workforce? And maybe I'll open it up to the group for discussion.
I think Renzi touched on something that was really important. And there's two parts to that question, I think, and that is that you've mentioned it, Kevin. People are going to be at varying levels. The organisation must be setting the standard about what it is and how, and the guardrails, because I think a lot of people think, oh, I've got to learn how to use AI. Yes, but you've got to learn how to use AI in context, and that in the context within which that you're using that. Because if you think about the different ways that you can ask that question, and if you are taking an HR viewpoint, it's working on HR. How are we going to and learn how to use AI for ourselves, for HR? Then how are we going to build an L&D program that is going to be a starter for 10 for the organisation as a whole, that they can take into their general lives? How are we going to then, sort of case 3 is, how are we going to build an L&D program to make sure that we are make the privacy compliance, using it for good, I suppose, is the way that we've been using that terminology. All of those things, it's looking in-house to make sure that there is somebody that is looking at how your organization is putting the stake in the ground from the board of directors down. What is it that you want, and how is it that the company wants to actually strategize the use of AI? Then you're looking at your provider, because where there's no point in having a generic AI training program, no point from an expense point of view, an AI generic program, if you are using Copilot because you are a Microsoft-based organization. It is much better to be more pointed towards utilizing the Microsoft product as it's supposed to be used within the Microsoft suite. Of course, based on what does generative AI do and how should it be operating. But I think that, if you sort of got to take it in chunks and stages, then of course you've got, for us in our profession, the organizations like Hacking HR, who are doing very, very strong research and development, and also execution in training and development for professionals themselves. So I think there's a lot of research HR professionals can do themselves to make sure that that's strategized rather than spray gunned, because that is absolutely the most important thing not to do, because it's very easy to do it. We all saw that with HRIS, 10, 15 years ago. Let's all get on the bandwagon and have an HRIS. And then 5 years into it, everybody's got bits and pieces, and no one, a bit of an ATS and a bit of an onboarding and a bit of a website and a bit of this and a bit of that, as opposed to understanding the full complexity system, the power of the system, as it operates as a whole.
I think, to add to that, for me, I think one of the most important things is to have that cross-functional collaboration. And to, many of the panelists' opinions earlier, in that you really need to do a readiness assessment. And that's not only as an organization as a whole, but also within each of the functions, and maybe even, in specific departments within those, overarching, whether it be divisions or, functions, etc. I think one of the things that I find to be easier for people to absorb is if you do have people internally that are trained and that can speak to the technology in a more specific manner to that particular company, to that particular skill set, it does seem to be a little bit more successful than, for example, what Alicia had said, where the whole organization is trained. People are wondering, what exactly this means for me, and, what am I supposed to do with this information? But I think also, if you just back up to it's really, really important to establish as an overall company what is the rules and the guidelines for using AI. Megan had mentioned that lots of people were, bringing their own AI to work to help them with their job, and a lot of those organizations aren't necessarily on board with utilizing AI as a whole. So it's important, and I am always advising, you need to think about that ever changing guidelines that are constantly updated, and where are you at today, where are you going to be at in a few weeks, a few months, etc. And then I had mentioned earlier too, to me, it's about thinking about it from an overall cultural shift, thinking about technology as a whole, AI, and your strategy culturally, building that within your trainings that already exist. Many people are already using, especially in HR, have been using AI within their ATS system. Maybe they've just never identified it as knowing that that was AI that they were using, but most AI system or most ATS systems have been using AI for quite some time. What type of AI, and now defining generative AI, etc. Right? You can take a look at all of those things as well. But I think it's really important to think about, doing the assessment cross-functionally and having some champions within the organization that are really championing, what's best for the organization as a whole. And specifically, where are your pain points? Because you shouldn't be implementing AI just to implement AI because that's the latest and greatest, to be able to do that. What is the pain point that you're dealing with? And then how best to address that? More than likely, it's going to be something from an AI capability, but making sure that you know what it is that's going to be the win afterwards, and getting some quick wins in from an AI perspective, regardless of where that is within the organization, can be extremely impactful to others if they see that there is something positive that's happening. So those are some of the other things that I would say pertaining to training.
I love, Kara, that you brought up the policies that an organization needs to have in place, and also how that dovetails in the culture. Given most organizations are about to go into performance management season, what a great opportunity for everyone that's on this call to take a look or have some discussions around what's your organization's comfort level with leaders leveraging tools like ChatGPT or Gemini to help them write their performance reviews. I think that's an easy, timely use case to have the discussion with stakeholders, and then create some guidance and guidelines, again with a specific use case. On one hand, what a great time-saving function for leaders to just pop some insights into ChatGPT and say, please write some feedback. But what's the employee experience? How would you as an employee feel knowing that your leader took 30 seconds to write your review? So love the call out, Kara, on policies and guidelines around different tools, different use cases. What does that look like for your organization?
I want to build on that one. I like what you guys are saying there, because I recently worked again with another organization. So this topic I was talking about, a multi-layered one. What we've done also was basically the foundation level is a transversal topic. For example, to your point, Megan, about because a lot of people are already using ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, or whatever else out there. But people don't know how to write proper prompts. So prompt engineering is transversal to all the roles. So when you teach people, so since you're already using it, don't just copy paste. These are the best practice when it comes to really utilizing and making full use of these generative AIs. This is how you write your prompt engineering. These are the available resources for copywriting, for video creation, for video editing. Then once you have that transversal topic, you can go to the different departments when it comes to what do you guys do on a regular basis that will create efficiency if you had an AI tool. So once you have identified that pain point that Kara was talking about, then maybe you're somehow helping them. If you don't have all the means to do this huge organizational assessment on the readiness, but you can also just have like interview, focus group session with these departments to understand what's most painful for them and for the people that they work with and their end users. By identifying what's most painful in their process, in their procedure, then your tech team or your IT team can somehow help them find whatever is most appropriate as a tool for them, an AI tool for them. And then if you have an L&D department, then they work around how can you leverage, like the existing expertise in-house to actually develop people. Otherwise, you can also partner with your vendors, as we said earlier. So yeah.
Now, one thing just to circle back on a few of the points that you guys just made. Megan, you talk about performance management. I do think it's actually, in my opinion, one of the best case scenarios that you can use it for, and managers do love it because it does save a lot of time. But with that said, I think if you look at all the, Chat GPT, Gemini, Claude, etc., each one of them from a pro perspective are very inexpensive, relatively, most average around $20 a month if you want to get the pro version. You can build your own assistant or your own, template, in Claude, it's called projects, and Chat GPT, you are creating them, but being able to do it in a way that HR would be okay with managers being able to utilize it by saying what questions you want, them to be able to utilize and manage it from that perspective. And, have managers be able to have some help. I think, if you think about, at least in my experience, I have yet to be at an organization that even speaks about how much they love performance management, really living and breathing that. So I would say, it is one of the areas that can be the most impactful. Of course, they shouldn't be just using those tools to write it, and there has to be, validity behind it and, that personal touch. But I do think it can help, and especially for those managers that really dread doing the performance management. And I'm hoping that it will also move the needle in being able to think about performance management as a whole, throughout the year versus a one-time a year type activity that seems to bog down people. But I just wanted to mention, there are some inexpensive ways that HR can already move the needle. Of course, if their organization is on board with that.
There's some great points just raised in there, especially around the use case of how do you handle performance management. That resonated a little bit. I'm thinking to myself, how would I feel if I knew there were a couple of bullet points and then essentially Chat GPT writing it for me. So it's a great point for consideration there. I know we're coming up on the hour here. We've had a phenomenal discussion across a number of different literacy and AI topics. I want to close with an opportunity for each panelist to go through and maybe answer this for themselves. If there was one crucial step that HR leaders could take today to ensure their teams are not only AI literate, but are prepared to almost lead the way in being able to integrate new AI solutions into the workplace, like what is that one crucial step you would recommend? And maybe we'll start with you, Alicia.
Well, I'm going to back to my first point in this session. I think that no matter how creative we are on preparing programs or figuring out how to help people explore the world of AI, as this is a business topic, I think that it's critical to know where do you go in terms of reskilling people for the future, no matter if it's AI or data or technology or whatever, and get the right technology to support your skilling activities in the company and to support your operating model for the future. Okay, this is my biggest point.
I'll go next. My advice or suggestion would be for HR teams to take time to experiment. So maybe it's, Friday at 10 a.m. once a week, for the team to come together and really like learn and try things and experiment and talk about it. Rather, aside from a training, but more of that, like, let's go in together and let's practice. How do we make a coaching guide leveraging ChatGPT and spreadsheets and Canva and have this amazing outcome? And so just really carving out that time for the team to come together and practice these things together.
I'll build on that one, Megan. I think it's walking the talk. As HR professionals, before we start preaching people upskill yourselves, or improve your AI skills, I think we as HR professionals, we should also be proactive about upskilling ourselves. Not only how to teach people how to become AI literate, but also ourselves as HR professionals on how can we really leverage on the power of AI, so that when we speak to people about AI, we can use our own use cases on how it has improved our effectiveness, our productivity, because people are fearful about AI. The ones who are actually going to be replaced by AI are the ones who are not using and are embracing AI. So let's walk the talk and show the people that by using this, it can significantly improve efficiency, effectivity, but also the overall productivity of the organization.
Yeah, I agree with all points made thus far. I would say for me, typically, if I was speaking very generally, there are many organizations that don't fall into this, but there are more often than not, HR is not as, there are a lot of tactical and transactional parts of HR, which can be a lot more efficient very quickly. And so, you talk about from an HRIS perspective, there are organizations that don't have a formal HRIS in place. And it doesn't matter the size of organization that exists in lots of organizations. If you think about, I do a lot of mergers and acquisitions. You have to think about anything that you're going to implement, that you're not having to reinvent the wheel constantly as you continue to grow, both organically and through acquisition, and that you're going to be able to utilize those tools. I think HR, to Ren's point before, I think HR, if you go ahead and just take a little bit of time to implement things that can make a huge impact on your day-to-day work within the function, that is going to make a huge difference to then free up your time to be able to help the rest of the workforce and to be able to embrace AI as a whole from an organization standpoint. But I think to others' points is that it's really hard to be speaking that we should be moving in that direction when a lot of people view HR as behind the times from a technology standpoint as a whole. It's very difficult to be that credible champion being able to do that. So I do think that there needs to be a little bit of time spent in HR as a function and as a whole, and it can be done in a very quick way. There are some real quick wins to be able to use AI. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have the assessment done from an overall which technology platforms we're going to use as a whole, just very quickly, and people can make a difference in the amount of time that are spent on some pretty mundane tasks that do exist and will always exist. So making those more efficient to free up your time to spend on the strategic part, I would say is where you should focus first. And I think that will help you in the long run, not only for your own function, but then to being that, credible champion to speak to your, specific case points, as Wency had said earlier.
Yeah, all really good points. I think now's the time, if from an HR professional perspective, that people are going to do it anyway. So, I think that we can in a multi sort of pronged approach as leaders in HR, collaborate with our people in HR and help them from a professional development perspective, invest time and energy and some money into the HR department to work out how show the way, almost make its own use case to show the way for the rest of the business. And that's insofar as then that's demonstrating the capacity to lead change in general, but also lead change for the organisation, and also being in the box seat with regards to using that time as you're iterating through how HR can be better, because there's only going to be a win here. There are parts of the HR processes that people absolutely that avoid like the plague. So why not? There's some really big wins and quick ones that we should be getting involved in. And then also, sort of sneaky, making sure that we're at the table for the strategy on compliance as well.
So a lot of great points just raised there, and maybe just really quickly, if there's any particular use case that any of you would cite as almost kind of a surprising use of AI to help for any of your day-to-day responsibilities, or anything that kind of that you've dabbled with that kind of surprised you of just what it could do.
I think Kara said that earlier. For me, it's the ChatGPT, building your own GPT, which is actually amazing. I only learned about it maybe a couple of months ago after doing this program, and then it's life-changing, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
I would say, I mean, for me, there's so much. I mean, if you think about just even, I kind of chuckled a bit when Alicia was saying about the overall, data analyst perspective and getting, formal training in that. It is really important to understand data, but I think I've always believed that from an HR perspective, and it's very helpful. But if you look at what can even be done from a data analytical standpoint, of course, leaving out any confidential data. But if you think of an example of doing an employee survey, right? And then no matter what you're using for that tool, a lot of people are using, outside firms to be able to do that. And then what those numbers look like, and having overall themes, etc. That all can be done with a ChatGPT or a Claude or whatnot, and that analyst or the data can be, brought together in ways, and the amount of time that can save is just extraordinary. And then you really can be so much more credible if you can then spend the time on how are we going to action the feedback versus looking at it from, okay, let's take everything in. It takes us months to, get everything together, etc. I think the turnaround time for a lot of things can be a lot more efficient from an overall HR perspective. So I would say that's one of the best things that comes out of AI, in my opinion.
Oh, that's great points, and I'm sure more to come. We're excited about current iterations right now, and then 2025 will hit, and I'm sure we'll see the next wave of generative AI just completely take over. So it's an incredibly important discussion, and I'm so grateful today for all of the panelists sharing their thoughts, their insights as leaders in the HR industry, and a lot to digest. So want to thank also everyone around the world who joined us today for this great discussion. I'm sure the materials will be shared out afterwards for anybody who wants a recording. But just again, thank you to the panelists today for a great discussion, and hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Kevin.
Kevin.
Thank you, everyone. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.